And for the person who's going to actually make the remarks today, I'd like to take a second just to introduce him. This gentleman served in Vietnam, so it's only appropriate and fitting that he be the one that was going to talk today. He flew over 2,000 combat missions, ferrying out over 5,000 casualties as a medevac pilot. We're thrilled and honored to have with us today a Medal of Honor recipient, Major General Pat Brady.
I want to just single out one person here. Maria Rocco, are you here? She told me she would be here. She is the wife of Richard Rocco, Medal of Honor recipient, died some time ago. Your mess hall, or should I say dining facility, is named after him. He and I served together, great soldier, great woman. And when I think about those of us as veterans, I think of my daughter, who was in the invasion of Iraq. And I've been almost dead a bunch of times, but I never went through anything like I went through with my daughter over there and me not there to help her. So we should all remember those who we left behind, all veterans. They go through as much or more than any of us did. So I also want to say I'm very pleased to see an old friend here, General Kicklighter. I just came from a meeting of a lot of veterans, and they're just delighted to know that this great soldier is going to be handling the anniversary, the 50th anniversary ceremonies. He and I served together, and we're delighted to have him on our back. Now, I wonder if there was another war we fought, after 50 years, we were still saying, welcome home. I dare say the rest of our warriors were welcomed home when they came home. The reason, of course, is that when the Vietnam vet came home, he was treated like a war criminal, and we lost. And that's not something Americans are enamored with. Yet that soldier was never defeated on any battlefield in Vietnam. That may be a record. Our defeat was at the hands of the elite in this country, in the courtrooms, the classrooms, the cloakrooms, and the newsrooms. Cowardly media-phobic politicians, irresponsible, dishonest media, and other cowards and spoiled brats and professors from Berkeley to Harvard. I wish I could find the right words to describe my feelings for those folks. Now, living with the scars of war is difficult, for some unbearable, but all our veterans suffer. The Vietnam veterans suffered physically as much, perhaps more than any veteran in the last century. But no veteran has suffered the mental agony of that veteran. The thing that makes Vietnam so intolerable is what the elite tried to do to dishonor the source of those scars, to intensify the pain of the Vietnam veteran, to destroy their unselfish and honorable legacy. They opened a gash in his psyche, and then they rubbed salt in it. Now, the good news is we gotten over it. And the nation, I think, is ashamed of that treatment. And I think that has a lot to do with the way we treat today's warriors, with respect, even reverence, that every American warrior deserves. 87% of Americans hold the Vietnam veteran in high esteem, hopefully not out of pity, but for what he did. Now, America has no kings or queens, we have no dukes or duchesses, but we do have a nobility. America's nobility is our veterans. And the Vietnam veteran was a noble warrior. He doesn't believe that he did America a favor by his service. He believes that God did him a favor by allowing him to be born in America. What he did was incredible. And as we celebrate this 50th anniversary, it's a good time to look back on that great soldier and set some of the records straight for future generations. And things like your time capsule, but especially for our young people, to ensure that they're not misinformed about the sacrifices of their parents and relatives who served in Vietnam. Vietnam matches in unselfishness anything we ever did. There was really nothing in it for us in a material sense. No oil, no nothing. We were simply trying to help a helpless people be free from the evils of communism. And the GI contributed so much in their usual generous way to the welfare, the health, and the education of those wonderful Vietnamese people, especially the young. The Vietnam vet built hospitals and orphanages. He vaccinated thousands of those people. We adopted their children. We educated them. We cared for and about those people. No barrier, no political system will erase what our Vietnam veterans gave to those people. And Vietnam may be the only war we ever fought, or perhaps it was ever fought up to that point in time, in which the American soldier added to their heroism a humanitarianism unmatched in the annals of warfare. And he did it during the heat of the battle. Humanitarianism was our great victory in Vietnam. And as a dust-off pilot, I contributed with many other pilots to the rescue of some 1 million souls, a story that's never been told. Men, women, children, enemy as well as friendly. If a guy was hurt, we went and got him. We even carried a few scout dogs. Our humanitarian effort and what we did there is still there in the psyche of the people of Vietnam. It's in their hearts and souls, as it is in the hearts and souls so many people all over the world who have been touched by the American GI. It cannot help but have a positive influence in the years to come. I've been back several times and amazed at the way they treated me. As I talked to the young people of all the countries in the world that they would like to live in or visit, America ranks number one. So if we look beyond the media narrative, we see the quality of the Vietnam veteran, the intensity of that fight, and the suffering of that soldier. Contrary to reports, he didn't abuse drugs beyond his civilian cohort. He was less likely to be in prison than non-vets. His income exceeded non-vets by 18%, and his unemployment was less. He was and is an outstanding American citizen. Some say the fighting in Vietnam was less intense than World War II. The average infantryman in the Pacific in World War II saw about 40 days of combat in 4 years. His counterpart in Vietnam saw about 240 days in 1 year. And it was the Vietnam vet who was responsible for the remarkable victory in Desert Storm. The percent of those who died is similar to other wars, but the percentage of traumatic amputation and crippling wounds was 300% higher in Vietnam. 75,000 of those veterans were severely disabled. Now, the atrocities committed by U.S. troops were horrible, but not more horrible than any war, and those guilty were tracked down and prosecuted. The atrocities committed by the communists resulted in commendations on their side and went virtually unreported in the media. 36,000 Vietnamese were assassinated and 58,000 kidnapped. 91% of us who served in Vietnam are glad we served, and up to that point in time, we were the highest educated force ever sent into combat. Now, one disturbing statistic among the Vietnam veterans was their suicide rate. In the first 5 years after discharge, the rate was 1.7 times higher than non-vets. After 5 years, it was less, but nothing like it is today. This may have been due to the treatment the Vietnam veteran received in the early years after the war. Now, in Vietnam and since, we hear a lot about the so-called peace demonstrators in our society. But I'm sincerely hard-pressed to understand what these folks really contribute to promote, to ensure peace. They seem always to attack some element of our strength, which is the very source of peace. All the sheep, all the chickens in the world would like for everyone to be vegetarians. That hasn't happened, probably won't happen. There are simply too many wolves out there. Our veterans, our military, are the real peace demonstrators in America. Strength offers the only hope of peace, and these men and women have demonstrated and continue to demonstrate for peace by contributing to our strength. They have put their bodies, their very being, where their mouth is on behalf of peace. That's not hollow rhetoric on some safe street corner. It's cold, hard steel and warm blood, and no one can do any more to ensure peace. But it was our vets in Vietnam who slowed the onslaught of communism to this day. And communism, I believe, is dead in Vietnam. They just don't know what to do with the corpse. There's an inscription on the wall of a veteran cemetery that says they sacrificed their youth that liberty might grow old. There is no one, anywhere, who that better applies to than the veterans from Vietnam. Humanitarianism and a roadblock to communism were our great victories in Vietnam. The World War II guy was my hero. The Vietnam vet is my brother and sister, and I'm grateful to be here today with so many brothers and sisters from Vietnam and to remember friends on that Great Wall in Washington. I was with many of them when they took their last helicopter ride. And so finally, let me say God bless all of you for remembering us, and we appreciate deeply what you're doing.